Peace and great morning, kings and queens. It's another motivation, money-making Monday. It's another motivation, money-making Monday episode right here where we're getting into a candid conversation with none other than Your Highness, the royalty, the guru of community schools right now. Know what I'm saying? Miss Julianna Obie. This platform right here that we are on, Motivation Money Making Monday, it's a mindset. It's not just about a day. We highlight individuals in the community that's doing great things, doing great works, highlighting businesses, institutions, and just getting to the real heart of what makes the community tick and what's out there that's positively impacting our communities and what we need to do to grow and build them. So, Miss Obie, how are you today?
Oh my goodness, I'm on a podcast. I'm so excited.
Yes.
I am great. The weather is gorgeous. We finally had our first fully dry weekend. So
Wow.
the energy is really, really high.
Yes.
It's summertime. School's out.
Yes.
Make it count.
Yes.
So I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Now, listen, man, it's an honor to have you here and just to get a little bit deeper into who you are as a person, what you do in your role, and how that role truly impacts and has an amazing effect on our community, our youth, our families, everything that we come in contact with on a daily basis and make our whole world tick.
Yes.
So, who is Julianna Obie?
Well, I guess, all right, speaking in the third person, she is.
Yeah.
Julianna is a force. She is a product of two extremely strong, independent, driven parents that are community driven.
Yes.
That are, fully integrated into community, whether it be my father being a coach, a football coach since I was a toddler, basically, and my mother being engaged in different community initiatives and, volunteering in different community organizations. I am a granddaughter of very community-driven grandparents that are rooted here in Albany. So this is where my roots actually started before I even knew.
Wow.
I was born and raised in Jersey, but my family on my mother's side is actually from Albany. So my grandparents, my mother's side, have roots in Albany that go deep in the educational system, that go deep with social justice, and paving the way for a lot of Black families back in the 50s and the 60s in Albany. So I'm a product of just growth and community.
Yes.
I'm a great, I love to think that I'm a great friend. I love to think that I'm just naturally a motivator. Yeah. I like to bridge people together, bring people together. I love to share resources. I love to just be a forward thinker. And I really try to lead my life with nothing but positivity.
Yes.
I can only control what I can control.
Right.
So I'd rather just focus on that and focus on all of the, the gray and the nonsense that, tends to be around us a lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's me personally. And professionally, I feel like because of who I am personally, it kind of steered me into this professional space.
Right.
Being from a family that is rooted in education and community, kind of without me even knowing it. I never had the chance to meet my grandparents.
Yeah.
So just learning who they were throughout my life, kind of somebody in the back of my mind was just like, this is what you're meant to do. This is what you're meant to do, right?
It was always there.
It was always there.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know it. I had people telling me for years, you should get into education. You should really do this. And I was just like, nah, I don't want to do that.
Right.
Bureaucracy. I don't want to be a part of that system, right? But then, as I got older and I got to experience the different levels of the system, I really realized that although it is its own, it can be its own mess, right? But it requires people who are disruptors to work within that system to challenge what is, so that we could figure out what is to come, basically. And that's where I sit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nah, it seems like it's always been in your DNA to be who you are today, and that's a great thing. And people don't realize how important the family structure and the generations that came before you, and how that places an imprint on who the person becomes, in life. You know what I'm saying? Whether good, bad, or indifferent.
Right.
The things that your fathers and your grandparents do, your father and your mother do, your parents do, and your grandparents do, they tie into the person that you are and who you become.
Absolutely.
Directly and indirectly. And then it's only up to the person to lead that charge and be a part of that calling and that purpose that was always on them from the beginning. And you have done that, even when you denied or tried to run
Tried to
away
pivot.
from it. You know what I'm saying? It was just in you, and then, it drove you in the direction of the person that you are today. And you are doing excellent work within the community schools, and you continue to be an inspiration to everybody that you come in contact with. But for the people out there that's might not know the full grasp of what a community school is and what its differences are in regards to what a regular public school is and what a community school is, can you tell the audience what those differences are and how community schools impact the community?
Absolutely. So community schools is a strategy or a model that schools can adopt. And when you think about community schools, think about creating spaces or using schools as community hubs. So let's just say if you are a new family, to whether or not you're a migrant family and you're new to this country, or you're just new to, let's say, a new school district. Imagine how complex it is trying to navigate all of the support systems that may or may not exist in a particular area that you end up moving into. Community schools can be a bridge between, and does serve as a bridge between, resources, community resources, families, and school. It's also a way to put in services, interventions, programs, so that students are able to sit and actually learn in the classroom. So I think about community schools as, this is just the way that we should do schools, right? Schools should be a safe place of learning, a place where students, families, staff, community members, everybody can thrive, right? And I think about community schools in a way that our doors should be open outside of the traditional times that school normally runs. So typically, schools are open from, let's just say, 8 to 4. Right? But in community schools, you'll see programs that go into extended day learning. So you'll see things go on until 6 o'clock, so that families who may need additional support because they may be at work or whatever might be happening in life, their child is still learning, growing, flourishing after hours. You may see Saturday enrichment programming, right? So that kids are having something constructive to do and fun and engaging on the weekends. You may also see vacation week programming, which is not common, right? Schools normally are closed for vacation week.
Right.
Granted, everybody deserves a break,
Absolutely.
right? But raising kids never stops, right? Building strong communities, you can never take time off. So in community schools, you might see, winter break programming that may be around STEM, so science, technology, engineering, all of those things can happen. You may see workforce development programming for families. So the idea is, how can we use our schools to create whole, thriving communities? We typically just dump right into a child, and all of our resources just go into children, right? But imagine if we not only did that, but then we remove barriers for parents, right? We put in employment programs. We hosted career fairs for adults. We did English learning classes and had GED classes again at our school sites, so that parents, we see them every day. They drop their kids off, they pick their kids up. Why do they need to access all of these services outside of the building that their kids are in for 5+ years, right? So that's what community schools is. It is not it's not it should be a traditional way that
Right.
schools just operate, right? And I think this is where I hope like the trend is going. Yeah, it's just a robust community feel where everybody gets what they need,
Yes.
and we're speaking about equity, not equality, right? Everybody does not need the same thing. There
Right.
are people who need specific things, and community schools is a strategy to help meet the needs of those folks.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And what I'm hearing from what you just said was that the school plays as the headquarters of the community, where everything, all the resources, everything that the families and the people that live within the community can come to the school as a resource for whatever they might need. And it's heavy
Absolutely.
on that equity piece because it's not just about equality, it's about equity, where every child, every family has different needs, and they need different services and different resources, and the school provides all of those things, which makes it a community school. And the
Absolutely.
common denominator is the children that's going to the school, that all of us can meet at a neutral ground and say, hey, they're the assets. Those are the ones that we are feeding into, we're breathing life into, we're helping them grow. So we need to meet here where we are, where the children are, where the families are, so that we can be the headquarters and resource for
Absolutely.
everyone that's in the community and give the community what it needs.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's huge, and that plays a major part and shows the difference between the regular school system and how community schools really operate to ultimately see the community as a whole thrive.
Absolutely. And not only like, speaking to like being that center and being that hub, what's the essence of community schools, which are unlike traditional schools. Community schools are rooted in a bottom up model and not a top down. So at community schools, you'll see advisory boards, community school councils that are made up of the various stakeholders that you need to help make decisions.
Right.
Parents are on these boards. Students are on these boards.
Right.
Community members, community leaders, whether it's elected officials or nonprofit, leaders, or county resource staff, principals and admin and social workers. Those make up the advisory boards. And those folks are the ones that are looking at what the school specific needs are. So let's just say two schools could be on the same street.
All right.
They could have completely different demographics, completely different needs. Those boards are looking at what are the needs of our school and how do we want to allocate our additional dollars? How do we want to allocate, what grants do we maybe need to apply for? What partnerships do we need for our school? And we have parents who know their kids the best, the experts in their children, sitting at the table and not just having a seat, but having a voice. Because sometimes we may get a seat, but
Right.
we're just right.
You're just there.
You're just there, right?
Yeah.
So we don't want that. That's not what
Right.
community schools is. And that's what I really love, is that it's not a school being told what they have to do. They're actually looking at their numbers, they're looking at their needs, they're speaking to the people. They're analyzing what is happening in the community and what are we missing to make sure that our kids and our families are healthy and whole. And that's what I absolutely love about community schools, the fact that it's just rooted in collaboration.
Now, how does a community school help the neighborhoods and the cities and the counties that they exist in? Like, say, for example, how do they impact homelessness, or how do they impact mental health? How do they impact violence that may be taking place in a community or in a neighborhood that the community schools exist in?
So it can look different everywhere, but I think the biggest thing is that collaboration and that partnership piece. Schools are not experts in figuring out how to support families with homelessness, right? But there are plenty of community agencies that help families navigate homelessness or displacement. right? So it takes, typically in a community school, you'll have a community school coordinator or director who is the bridge between community and school that is
like
helping
director.
to, right. Right. I like director too. That is helping to be that bridge between community and school, and is facilitating these conversations with these community organizations that can help that need, right? So our schools, particularly in Albany, are partnering with Regional Food Bank, and we're helping with food insecurity, where all of our schools have food pantries. You may see partnerships with Albany Housing Authority or Tenants' Rights to support families that are displaced. So I think it's realizing that the school may not currently have the resources, but the resources exist.
Yes.
And instead of sending a family down to DSS by themselves, right, where they maybe have never had to navigate that system, you can invite that system into the school to then meet with families there, right? You can on a neutral ground, somewhere where they feel safe.
Familiar.
Right. Somewhere where they know I'm not going to be judged, right? Because the school has done so well with culture and climate. It has built up this level of trust with us that, I feel safe meeting with DSS there. I feel safe meeting with, immigration, folks. Obviously, in our climate that we're in right now, schools tend to be some of the safest places for families to have these meetings with. Absolutely. We're talking about, dental care happening in schools, and healthcare and vision clinics. So it's just helping families, navigate the various systems.
And I think that that's important, because if the families feel comfortable with sending their children there, then of course they're going to feel safe with meeting any one of those different entities or resources that they may need in the place of the school. Because if I'm sending my child there, then obviously I know that it's a safe place. And then I'm going to feel 10 times more comfortable meeting with any one of those individuals, where on the other hand, just like you just mentioned, with our current climate, going into any one of those other settings could
may not
mean
come
that
back.
I might not come back at all. But where I can go to the school, I know I'm going to be safe. They're not going to allow me to get snatched up, or my child to get snatched up, and I can get the resources that I need so that I can move on and move upward in my life,
Absolutely.
And what I see from what you just said, and all of the things that a community school provides to the cities and the counties that they exist in, I see it as a connecting factor, in the sense of it might not directly take care of homelessness or violence or anything like that, but when you having events inside of a community school, or you having entities coming into a community school, like a feed and read program that exists in some of our schools, or in the majority of our schools, that allow children to not only improve their literacy, but with food insecurities, that might take the weight of those parents having to worry about food to the degree that they may have had to if they didn't have those things in place.
Exactly. If
they need, dental or eye care or anything like that, then those things that's at the school, that takes an additional weight off the parents that would have been there if the community schools didn't provide those resources. And even with the violence aspect of it, when you bring parents in, like have fathers and mothers inside the school, and then you build with them about parenting and having parent courses inside the school, those type of resources make them more conscious and connected to doing the right thing, so that they're not going off to the left or to the right, or varying off in a way that could get them caught up in nonsense or some illegal activities, and might even provide them with career opportunities. So all of those things being present inside a community school, or within a school that's a community school, makes it and affects all of those things in a positive way. So the community school model and strategy is definitely a good one, and I feel like it should be everywhere.
Right. And I don't want to make it sound like, too, because sometimes we talk so much about like resources, right? And like families having access to the things that sound very social service like. I want to uplift that community schools is not intended to be a social service agency, right? While we can support, and we should support and connect and bridge gaps to access, it's also very much rooted in making sure that scholars are excelling academically and creating opportunities and access for students to experience things that typically schools may not have resources, schools may not have connections to be able to. We're talking about field trips. We're talking about also student workforce development.
Right.
We're talking about career and college readiness, communities being connected into classrooms so that teachers have an opportunity to expand on whatever section or area of focus they're on, during the year, which I really love about community schools. There are so many different opportunities, and not just in Albany, but everywhere. There are so many student engagement or academic programs that we don't tap into, enough. And connecting teachers, right? Because oftentimes we have teachers that don't reflect the demographic that they're teaching. And they don't understand what it necessarily means to connect community or culture to the classroom so that the content really sits with a child, right? Community schools is an opportunity to help bridge that gap with a teacher and community. So you're bringing folks into the classroom that may resemble and look like students to help you support whatever unit you might be on. It is taking a field trip outside of the classroom to help connect to learning, right? A lot of the times when you are in a traditional school setting, it's very much just, we got to just stick to this. It's very rigid, right? Community schools allows for the flexibility. And the folks who you tend to see it be successful because it's the people who want it to work, right? So again, not that top down, it's the people saying, we want our kids to be successful. Like, what else can we do for them that's out of the ordinary? And that's
powerful. Because the image that I just got in my head as you were speaking was a garden. Because it's like a garden with so many different seeds, and it's just getting everything that it needs to grow. And where you have tomatoes over here, you have corn over here, you might have pumpkins over there, or whatever type of fruit or vegetable that might be in that garden. And those things need different levels of attention. They need different watering patterns and may need an additional amount of soil, but all of those things are provided there. And everybody's learning and growing at the same time, not just the students, but the teachers are learning and growing at the same time. So it's hard for them not to embed what they're learning and growing with into those students and make them rise up even higher. So just like you mentioned, with the ground up approach, as the teachers are learning, the educators are learning, and the staff are learning, the students are learning even more and getting more enriched. So that's a powerful system and strategy to be in place. What is your passion for doing this? What really motivates you at the end of the day to be that person that is driving this strategy that is a key strategy, that is a winning strategy home with not just the parents, the students, and schools that might not be on board yet, but with the powers that be that might not, that's at the top, that's not seeing the vision in the middle or at the bottom for how important this strategy is and can be.
Yeah, so I always take this back to my own personal story and growing up. Community schools was brand new to me up until about 7-ish years ago. I had no idea what it was, right? But I was, and I say this confidently, I was privileged enough to grow up in a community that was centered around the people. I had mentors before I even knew what a word mentor was when I was a kid. I had access to after school programming. I was in Girl Scouts. I did different sports and clubs. I was able to travel, with my mom. I was always on like a college campus because that's where she works. So I was always surrounded by education. And then of course, just my bloodline, right? And being involved in education. Even when I moved up here from Jersey, the first community-based program that I went to was Girls Incorporated. And that was where I got a true sense of not only what it was like to be a part of something bigger than me, but I was involved in a space, in a program that I was able to pick and choose what my learning looked like. So I was able to take health and wellness, sports and adventure, health and sexuality, arts, programming, culture and heritage programming, science programming. And just with that after school program, I felt like it helped me be a more well-rounded person in general. I learned public speaking skills. I learned how to fundraise. I learned how to, coach and oversee like the little ones basically. And that ended up being my first job.
Right.
So growing up with all of that like support wrapped around me, my mom knew really early on, being a single mom, she was like, I'm not doing all this by myself. Y'all better get somebody else to do it.
Right.
But she was very intentional about who she got to do it. And I loved that I got that opportunity. So as I got older and I actually worked for Girls Inc., supervising the Albany Girls Inc. site for almost 6 years, that was when I truly realized that I needed to find a long-term something that provided this for all students, that provided this level of access and opportunity and enrichment to youth. So my first area of focus was always kids. It was always the youth. I always came from the mindset that if we make sure that they are good, then we will then be good.
Absolutely.
Right? So that was like where my passion started to come from. And then in Girls Inc., that's where everybody was like, you need to go be a principal. You need to go work in education. And I was like, bureaucracy, I don't want to do it. So honestly, community schools, I almost feel like it came to me. Right. Like I wasn't even looking for it. But as soon as I found it, I haven't left. And it really integrates all of my other personal passions, the social justice passion, the community, volunteerism, the mentorship. I get to incorporate all of those things and now coach other leaders on how to run this work and how to lead this work forward. And that's what excites me. I think like that coaching piece, that mentoring piece, and just sharing all of my big ideas, because my ideas are huge sometimes, which I love. I don't mind it. Sometimes people are like, you just got to slow down. And I'm like, for what? It's for the kids. Right. How are we slowing down? It's for them. So that's literally where I got, this, where it was like ingrained in me, because not all kids, no matter what your background is, not everybody has access and opportunity. Right. And I did. And I know what that did for me.
The benefits
of it, long term, short term, in the moment, and then 25, 30 something years later, I'm still benefiting from all of that. So I knew that I felt like it was almost like my personal responsibility to make sure that every kid had an opportunity.
To be exposed to this type of because that's the difference maker a lot of times, and a lot of youth lives, for many that grow up in either single parent homes, or whether even if they have both parents in their home but are not exposed to much. If they see other sides other than just growing up the way that I grew up, and just not being exposed for a large period of my life, and then finally coming up to the 518, coming in up to Albany, my first experience or exposure to Albany was seeing Livingston Middle School, and I'm like, they got a pool in their school.
Right.
like that. Coming from Brooklyn, I was like, yo, we ain't had no pool in our school or nothing. And then coming to Livingston and being like, they got a pool in the school? That blew my mind. I'm like, how could you go wrong?
Right.
Or do the
if you
wrong
got a
thing
pool.
if you got a pool in a school? And not only was it a pool, it was a basketball hoop on each end of the pool. I'm like, yo, y'all living the life right here. This is and just that exposure allowed for me to see differently. You know what I'm saying? And being with my family that lived up here, showed me like, wow, a 2-family home, eating at the table every day, those small levels of exposure changed my whole paradigm. I didn't see the benefits or the importance of it growing up. But now that I'm an adult and I got a family of my own, I see like, yo, these are the pieces that actually make a family what a family is.
Absolutely.
And it all started with me just being exposed to different things. You know what I'm saying? And the exposure can change a child's life.
Truly.
And actually lead them in the right direction, keep them out of trouble, and show them that there's other options and opportunities out there for them other than just being in the streets. So that's another point that I was leading to, because indirectly or directly, this is the way that community schools impact and affect the whole community as a whole and better the lives of the people that exist within it. You know, without it just being said or spoken, it's the seeds that's being planted, and that can work wonders and change a child for the rest of their lives when they go into adulthood.
Yeah.
So, you know, that it's a powerful strategy, and it's a powerful thing that I feel like needs to be implemented all
Everywhere.
over the nation. You know what I'm
It's
saying?
just
Like,
how we should do school.
right.
Right.
You know, it shouldn't even be a separation. It should just be what it is. You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, if we living and existing in our communities and we want our neighborhoods to transform from just being hoods to be actual neighborhoods like they should be or they once was, then this is the basis for making that happen.
Yeah.
You know, so that's very important. So what's the next steps for you? Where do you see community schools going leading into that? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
In the next 3 to 5, maybe 10 years, what would you like to see happen in the realm or with community schools?
Yeah. So I think first, and I think we almost touched on this a little bit ago. We were kind of talking about like, what does it take to get other people on board?
Right.
Or what are some of the challenges that kind of have come up in my role with this work? And I think a huge piece of it is because the academic system has been functioning the way that it has for so long, it is very hard to show just with words what community schools does to transform schools and neighborhoods.
Right.
I think it takes almost like you have to take people to a site visit to see it.
Right.
They need to see it in order to believe it. And a lot of people in education are also very data driven. So they want numbers, right? So how is a community school impacting attendance and disproportionality with suspending, you know, students of color? Is it helping to shift math and English, you know, test scores? And it's a yes to all of those things.
Yes.
But a lot of folks, you know, at the top who are the ones that are cutting checks and signing contracts,
Right.
they do need to see what the benefit is. And I think in my role, helping to connect people to other school districts that are doing this work and have had success with it, bringing folks, you know, there to see the site visit, allowing them to experience it and ask questions and read up on the data and the trends throughout all of the years is part of how we start to really create sustainability around this model so that we're not depending on federal dollars or only state dollars, right? Where the district sees, school districts in general see the benefit in community schools and they invest funds that already exist and they just reallocate them to support the community school work.
Right.
So that's kind of where I sit, is helping people see the vision and helping schools and school districts create a vision for community schools, right? Creating those strategic plans, figuring out what are your 3 to 5 to 10 year, what does that look like? And then how do we work backwards to see, to make that happen? But I can see community schools taking off. I think it really is just about how you market community schools, how you talk about it, how you brand it, how we can use students and parents and teachers to drive the community school work forward. They truly are the ones that are the most impacted. They're the stakeholders of this work. And if we use them, if we work with them in true collaboration, and they can speak to what the impact of their of being a part of a community school was, that's your biggest advertisement, right there. That's like That's what every community school needs. And we just have to, I would say, a big barrier is ego. I think that everyone wants their name on something, right? To say like, I did this and I put this event together, or I hosted this, or this was my thing. And until we realize that there are more power in numbers, and making sure that we're not spreading our communities and families so thin. And that is what speaks to true collaboration. So your name can be on it, but it may just be with 6 other people's names on it, because that's how we access the majority of people, rather than asking a community to spread themselves thin and go over here for this and go over here for this, and it's all on the same day. And then you're mad because nobody showed up. Well,
we are always stronger together. Yeah,
we're always stronger together. And so I see that is, I would love to see community schools, especially, in Albany for sure, I would love to see the entire district just be a community school district, right? But I think nationally, I just want to see the movement just keep growing. And I want to see the outcomes. I am very data driven and systems driven. So I want to see, because we were a community school, were more families able to purchase their first home? Were we able to increase the household income of a certain percentage of families because we did workforce development or connected them, with something? Did those test scores go up? Do we have more kids that are intrinsically motivated to come to school because we created this dope, school environment and experience where they're like, no, Ma, I'm getting up and I'm going to school today. I don't care what we got going on. It's freezing outside, but bet I'm going to school. Absolutely. So that's my big vision is just, I remember being in an elementary school that was so much fun. So much fun. And it was because the teachers really wanted to be there. The parents showed up to everything. We had fun family nights. The teachers were engaged in the community outside of the traditional day. So no matter what was happening on a Saturday or whatever, I could see 3 of my teachers in the community, right? That made me feel like I was a part of something. And I think that's how we get back to neighborhoods and community, is when people feel like they are a part of something, they have stake in it, they feel valued in it. And I see community schools helping to pave that way.
That's amazing. And on a micro and a macro level, you know what I'm saying? And it goes to the individuals as well, to the growth that a community school, or just one community school and then expanding to many, can have a great and tremendous impact on individual families and on communities, and then the nation as a whole. And it keeps bringing me back, because I was just watching the movie Straw, the Tyler Perry movie, and the first thing that came to my mind was she wouldn't have gone through all of those things that she went through if her child went to a community school, because it would have dealt with her food insecurities. It would have helped her out with finding medical care for her daughter. And with career opportunities and workforce development for her to get herself in a better position where she wasn't working for Joe Smo, a homeboy that was just out of line in the way that he was dealing with and handling her. So all of those things would have been addressed, and she would have received all the different resources that she needed if the school that her child went to was a community school.
Absolutely.
And that's the power of a community school just being shown right in plain sight, right in everyday television, and where we see it firsthand. If that school was a community school, then all of those issues that she dealt with could have been curbed, and she would have been in a better position, and it wouldn't have drove her to have to deal with that last straw and go in a different direction that she ended up going. So we need community schools.
Absolutely.
We have to push this agenda. We have to push this strategy, and I'm on board.
Yes.
I'm with it 110%. And I'm intrinsically motivated because I see the benefits of it and I see what it ultimately does for our families, for our children, and for our communities. This has been another motivation, money making Monday, where the motivation in the Monday is not just a day, but a mindset. So I thank you once again for being on this platform, sitting here with us, taking time out of your busy schedule. Is there any last words that you want to say to the people or just say in general?
Absolutely. Vote. Vote and vote smart.
Yes,
Especially when
absolutely.
it comes to community schools. Community schools a lot of the times rely on not only federal dollars but also state dollars and local dollars.
Yes.
And it requires advocates to get out there speaking to local legislators, speaking to council folks, speaking to, anybody who has the opportunity to vote on a budget. It is extremely important for us to be as vocal as possible and as visible as possible with community schools.
Yes.
And I just encourage everybody to just stay rooted in community, rooted in your neighborhood. If you have the opportunity to give back, extend a hand, just let's build what we used to have, again. And let's just keep the investment in our babies, growing, and our people, and be our own saviors, and
Yes.
let's not wait for somebody to
Nobody's coming.
come pick us up, right?
coming to save
Like
us.
nobody's coming to save us. We got to save ourselves. So
That's a fact,
we're going to keep building
100%.
these tables that we're
Yes.
going to sit at. And that's what I want to leave you with today. I am so
Absolutely.
grateful. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. And like once again, man, nothing moves without the dollar, but definitely nothing moves without the people coming together and making things move. So that's what it's all about: motivation, money making Monday, the mindset, the platform. We out, y'all. Peace.